Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, the Project Investigation Collaboration, the collaboratory podcast between the Veritas Project and investigator Todd. And of course, we are always here with the walking Wikipedia of the weird and founder of the Veritas Project, the man with the best wardrobe in the paranormal business, Robert Curtis. Yep. And he is our gracious host because we are down here in the Veritas Project studios.
Yep.
And I am investigator Todd Boyer. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So today, you guys have been telling us on the live that you guys want, real crime and mystery and that kind of stuff. So we are going to bring you the Lizzie Borden house, which is also a very, very haunted site on top of it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a brief history and definitely going to talk about some stuff going on with that. And yep, I'm done too. And we will get deep in the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah.
So, in the small town of Fall River, Massachusetts, the Lizzie Borden house stands as an infamous landmark of American crime history. On August 4th, 1892, Andrew Borden and his wife Abby were found brutally murdered in their home. The primary suspect was Andrew's daughter Lizzie Borden, who was accused of wielding the axe that ended their lives. Despite a highly publicized trial, Lizzie was acquitted, leaving the case officially unsolved and surrounded by speculation and mystery. The house, now a bed and breakfast and museum, attracts visitors eager to delve into the chilling history and explore the enigmatic events that transpired within its walls.
Yep. Yeah, we actually traveled out to the Boston area and stayed the night in the Lizzie Borden house. So we stayed in the room that was Lizzie's parents' room. It's right next door to her bedroom. Her and her sister shared a room together. So we stayed in their room, their bedroom. Not the room they were killed in, or the stepmother was killed in, but it was on the same floor.
Rabbit hole, first rabbit hole. I wonder if you blacklight the floor like in the Lemp Mansion, if you could still see the blood.
I don't know. The rug has been replaced since then, so.
Yeah, but it might have went through into the wood. Yeah.
Underneath of it, yeah.
I wonder.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder. That makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. So there's a spot in the Lemp Mansion where one of the Lemps unalived themselves, and you can shine a black light on the floor because the wood actually soaked up the blood. So there's always still where you can shine the black light and see the blood pool.
It's one of the things they do on the tours. They like to show everybody that spot.
Actually, they covered that up.
Really?
Yeah, and they didn't allow us to do it. Yeah, well, when we were doing it, when I was giving the tours, we weren't allowed to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, Mark still did.
So, but is what it is.
Right.
All right. So, historic background: the Lizzie Borden house was built in 1845, and like I said, in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Right.
And it was purchased by Andrew Borden in 1872. And originally it was a two-family residence, and they converted it to a single-family home by the Bordens, and the site of the infamous 1892 murder.
Right.
So how long ago did you stay there?
It was July of last year.
Oh, really? So not horribly long ago.
No.
So your last vacation, basically.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was fun.
How long were you guys there?
We were in Boston for a week in the area. Mm-hmm. You know, we saw a whole bunch of stuff. We stayed in the house one night.
Okay. Did you guys get to do an investigation or just right on?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Really. Yeah.
Hey, we've always said, guys, when you do an investigation, it could be the most haunted place in the world, but then it could be the most boring 3-4 hours of your life.
Yeah.
Where absolutely nothing goes on.
The thing about the Lizzie Borden house is it's you can't get in to the house until like 1 o'clock or something like that in the p.m. And then until like in the evening, the whole house is open. Mm-hmm. Like, so you're supposed to leave your room unlocked and all stuff, so people can just come in. So there was a family of people from like Wisconsin or something that stayed in the upstairs part when we stayed there, and they came in incredibly late. Like, it's sundown, they showed up. They were up and down the stairs thousands of times. They were slamming doors. They came and tried to open our door a bunch of times. You know, we're like, you know what I mean? So, and then they also got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to get back on the road. So it's one of those things, like I always say, about when you pay a bunch of money to do one of these investigations, you know, or you pay a bunch of money to go into like a haunted location and do an investigation. Every single time I've ever done that, there's been someone there who made it their goal to ruin that experience for every other person in the building. They are just obnoxious, annoying. They have no idea what they're doing. They get in the way of everything. Every time you try to do a shot, they're right in front of you trying to just ruin everything. Then they'll turn their phone on and start going live for their friends, like doing a Zoom call to all their friends and talking loud through the entire thing.
We go live for our friends, but
yeah, but I'm not going to start doing duck face and taking pictures and for the gram, gram, right? You know what I'm saying? Like almost every time that I've paid to do an investigation, it's been ruined by some idiot, you know. And
that happens because it is a paid investigation, right. And the idiots can
they're
go
entitled.
in.
They're entitled to be there. So
that's one thing that you really got to look out for in the paranormal community. You know, is who are you going with, and is it the main season? You know, and if it's a small enough place, you either get friends or you pay for the whole place.
Right.
And that's the only way you could do those pay places is you either go with people you know or you pay for the whole fucking place, which
right.
Who wants to pay for the whole place, honestly?
Right. I mean, or you can get a big enough group together that you can just take over the whole thing, and then you can control the environment, you know. So that would be the ideal goal.
Which, speaking of, we need to talk about everybody's still wanting to do a group investigation. So we'll talk about on the live after the podcast here. We still want to do a group investigation. So the Borden family, right, consisted of Andrew, who actually was a wealthy businessman.
Yeah.
And Abby, which was actually Andrew's second wife.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, Lizzie, which was the daughter from the first marriage. And then Lizzie's older sister, Emma. And then Bridget Sullivan, which is the family's live-in maid.
Right.
So this isn't just... And that was part of what made it such a big deal, is this just wasn't, some people... in a house somewhere. This was a prominent businessman of the community.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it was it'd be like one of the Bushes, in St. Louis.
Yeah, they were very, very wealthy, and he was into a whole lot of stuff. Like he was a part owner of a bunch of banks. He owned like the coal distribution business. He owned like a livery, like a wagon rental type business. He owned a lot of. He was very, very, very wealthy for the time, but he lived very austere life. Like the house isn't extravagant like you would think for a multimillionaire would have, a extravagant mansion. It was just a house basically, and
well, obviously it had to be a larger house though. I mean, for that time, because it was a two-family, or was it just
not really
such a small home?
It was nice, but like the Victorian house that we used to own in our local town here, it was about the same size as that house. And we paid like $75,000 for that.
So on the morning of August 4th, 1892, Andrew was unalived in his sitting room. Abby was unalived in the guest bedroom. Both victims were struck multiple times with a sharp weapon. Discovered by Lizzie and Bridget Sullivan, and Lizzie's conflicting statement raised suspicion. Right. Now, when they say multiple times, we don't mean they were struck 5 times.
Yeah.
Like, whoever did it basically tried to make hamburger out of them, honestly. Yeah. I mean, they struck them that many times with an axe.
I'll put a picture of their skulls up here, because I have my own photos, so I don't have to worry about trademark. But the actual skull, the resin cast of the skulls that they made for the trial are in the house.
Oh, right on.
They're in the dining room and you can take pictures of the actual like cast of the skull, so you can see that it was. And they actually have a rendering of the actual axe head too in that same case. So I have a picture of that too.
That's cool. So obviously, Lizzie was the initial suspect due to her behavior.
Right.
But Bridget was also questioned.
Yeah.
And but Bridget wasn't charged.
Yeah, she wasn't there. She was a friend of hers had just given birth.
Right.
Like the day before, so she was across town helping her friends, you know, to take care of the baby and then the house and all that stuff. So that was her. You know, she had 30 people as her alibi. So,
but there was no actual physical evidence linking Lizzie to the murder.
No.
The only thing that linked her was that she bought prussic acid.
Yeah.
So, which, you know, back then was kind of like bleach, right? Kind of a thing. So,
right.
And that was like the key point for to try to convict Lizzie. So the police handling of the crime scene was highly criticized.
Yeah.
So
basically, the whole town came in and out of the building while it was still a crime scene. Everybody on that block, and the house is directly across the street from the church.
Oh, so that makes it.
So a lot of people came from the church and were like, you know, wanted to see what was going on, and they came in and out and moved stuff, and they picked up the newspapers and moved the newspapers and stuff, and it was the whole crime scene was contaminated from beginning to end, and every police officer who in the town who wasn't even on duty came into the house too.
Right.
So they came in, and there's pictures in the house because they have like a big binder of all the photos from it, and you can go through, and you can see the actual police photos that were taken from like the real negatives, like the real photos of it, and there's 30-40 people standing in the house with the body laying right there. You're like, it couldn't have been more contaminated. You know what I mean? Like in a modern courtroom, they'd have thrown it out immediately. They'd have been like, it's so thoroughly contaminated that there's no evidence you can use from the house at all.
Right. So the trial was then held 11 months later.
Yeah. Right,
in June of 1893, and it took place in New Bedford.
Right, which is a ways away from there.
Obviously, because of how the popularity of it.
Right.
So they wanted to keep it as far away as they could reasonably. High public interest, media coverage. You know, Lizzie, obviously, her defense was all about lack of evidence.
Right.
And the jury deliberated. I can't talk.
Only 90 minutes.
Yeah, so 90 minutes the jury deliberated, and Lizzie was acquitted on June 20th.
So part of that 90 minutes was because they put their lunch order in.
So, yep.
If that tells you anything about it. And from actually staying in the house myself, you know, and not hearing someone else's opinion, and looking at all of the evidence that they have in the house, that you can look at the real photos and everything. Initially, I was like everybody else. I was like, oh yeah, she hacked him up for the money, you know, and then, you know, basically got away with murder. But after looking at all the evidence and the testimonials and reading the police reports and the evidence and everything, you know, the court documents and everything is in the house. I don't think she did it.
Really?
Yeah. Because the axe head that they found, the burned up axe head that was in the basement, doesn't match any of the wounds on the skull. They
found a burned axe head in the basement.
Yeah,
so
it was a broken off axe head that they had. Who knows what they used it for?
Right, exactly, and that's what my thought would be.
Right.
You know.
But all of the tools that they found in the garage, which is now the gift shop, right, and they used to raise chickens out there.
Right.
So they had a whole, you know, corner of axes and shovels and all that kind of stuff. None of those matched the wounds on the head. It was like a hatchet type axe, right? So then they took Lizzie, who is, you know, early 20s, you know, girl, right, and gave her a hatchet and told her, like, you know, strike this cantaloupe or pumpkin or whatever it was, and she couldn't put enough force into a short-handled hatchet to make a deep enough incision in a watermelon or a cantaloupe or whatever melon it was, to approximate a wound into a person's thick skull. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So whoever hit them in the head hard enough that it
well, and not only hit them in the
skull.
head hard enough to chop the skull, but multiple swings.
Right.
Like, you are probably, and I hate to say this, guys, I'm sorry, but it was probably a male with as many swings as was taken.
Right.
Like, even an in-shape male would have been out of breath after that many swings.
And add to that, she had no blood on her at all. They took all of her clothes off and put, bagged them up, and they're still in the house right now. You can actually see it. They went fiber by fiber with a microscope and found one little brown stain on it, on her dress, and it was on the apron part that went over the dress, and it turned out to be paint. From where she was painting the window sash months ago or whatever. So there was no evidence linking her to the crime at all. And the weird thing about all this, right, was she was the one who identified, that noticed the crime.
Right.
Because she was upstairs, and came downstairs and then saw her dad and was like, oh, what the, and she started screaming and ran out of the house, and then the maid ran directly across the street to the church, which is only maybe 10-15 yards,
right,
to get the other people who then came into the house.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So in the space of a minute, there were people in the crime scene already. So it's completely impossible for her to have hacked them up, ran off somewhere in the house,
and gotten
cleaned up, took off the dress, put on another dress, and then came back down. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's impossible for that to have happened. Not to mention, I've walked up and down those stairs in that house, and you're not. They're not in the best shape. Yeah, you're not sneaking your way around in that house. They're wooden steps, and they don't have a support in the middle. So when you walk on it, it's like.
Well, they're also a lot older than they were then too.
Right. Yeah.
They're 100 years old now.
But I'm still saying they're wooden stairs.
Right. Yeah.
Because she didn't take the grand staircase upstairs. She took the servants' staircase, right? Though. And it's narrow and wood, and you would have heard somebody going up there, especially Bridget, who is that's her. She lived up there,
right?
And she used those stairs every day, so she would know the sound of someone walking up and down those stairs,
right?
So
after the trial, she lived in Fall River until she passed away in 1927.
Yep.
She did purchase a new home in Maplecraft with her sister Emma. And of course there was rumor and social ostracism.
Right.
Lizzie and Emma, they eventually became estranged.
Yeah, her sister moved out to Arizona.
She's buried in the family plot in Oak Grove Cemetery.
Yeah, I'll put the photo that I took right here.
Then that'll all happen tomorrow as Bob goes live.
Yeah.
But he usually starts about 9 o'clock on Monday morning, and he will edit all this.
Yeah.
And we'll go live again on TikTok for you guys watching on YouTube. We'll sit and we'll chit chat as Bob goes through and puts pictures and does what he needs to do and trims up the video.
We did a whole thing of Lizzie Borden. We stayed there. We stayed in the house, and then the next day when we got up, we went and visited Maplecroft, and then we went to the Borden's graves, and we saw all of their graves, and then we went down the street to the animal cemetery and saw all of Lizzie's pets that are buried there in the cemetery.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, obviously, as Bob said, they turned everything into a bed and breakfast, a museum. The rooms were restored to their 1892 appearance.
Yeah, and they bought the furniture back.
Oh, really?
From an antique shop that had it, and the ones that they couldn't actually buy the real piece of furniture back. They found a replica of it that was identical and brought it back. So everything in the house is almost identical to the way it was.
Right. So they have tours and paranormal tours, tons of displays.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's a big deal.
So you get like the crossbreed, you get the paranormal investigators in there, and then you get the true crime enthusiasts. Right. So you get a good plethora of people. So
it's something to see. Because it's in the old downtown part of the city,
right,
which is now not the downtown. So
right.
it's like there's a street that goes right in front of it that looks like it would be like the main street of the town, and it's not at all. Like the main street is like blocks over.
Right. So the town grew in a different direction, basically, than what had originally been planned.
But if you watch like the movies and stuff, the house that they used in the movies doesn't look like the real house, you know. So it's close, you know, but it's not. So like in the movies, there's like a wide like 4-lane boulevard in front of their house, you know, and then like the church is like catty corner, like a block away, and then the doctor's office is like closer. You know what I mean? But in reality, the house is only it's only a 2-lane street, and the church is immediately right across the street. Like you could just
hit it with a paper airplane.
Toss a paper airplane and hit the church. It's like literally that close. And then the doctor's office is on the next street over, down the alleyway behind the church. So
gotcha.
It's only like maybe 20 yards away from the house.
Oh wow!
So
even super close for the doctor to get there and check things out. So I'm sure that with the way it happened, that everybody came over and nobody thought to go grab the doctor immediately. You know what I mean? Oh, okay, but still, you have
the maid,
all the people coming into the house across from the church because Lizzie went out freaking out. Right. So that probably drew attention. Everybody came in, and by the time somebody went and grabbed the doctor, and the doctor grabbed his crap and came back, the house was probably already full of people.
Oh yeah.
So like you said, crime scene, you know, contamination from like literally within 10 minutes of it happening to, you know, all the way through. So, but then of course, so they've got TV shows, right? The movies, books,
multiple movies.
You know, there's a musical called Lizzie.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it just, there's so much that has come about, you know, and it's a symbol. It's like a crown jewel almost of like unsolved mysteries and intrigue in American history. So
the funny thing about it is if you actually go there and you can look at the like police reports, like the actual printouts of the police reports that were taken that day, you know, there's all kinds of stuff that you've never ever heard of before in this, because there's a narrative, you know, that she did it, and that's the only outcome that they're willing to accept, you know what I mean? But if you actually go there and hear the stories and see everything for yourself, you'll kind of be like I am, where you're like, I don't think she did it, you know, because
so I wonder if somebody that like maybe owed him money,
and it could be. Or somebody he fired or let go, you know, or somebody who he had done a bad deal with and they weren't happy about it, you know. Because they in one of the police reports, the neighbor who literally their kitchen window looks directly into the backyard of them, and it's not like a country home. We're talking about the city, so it's not like yards. It's like feet from their kitchen window to the Borden's backyard. It's like maybe 6 feet. And she saw a guy, a drifter, she says, like, you know, a disheveled working type guy, hanging out in the gap between her house and the Borden house. Like, because there was like I don't know if it was an apple or there was some sort of bush there that had fruit on it. And the guy was standing there right at the corner of the Borden's house with a knife eating fruit. From the vine, whatever it was, the bush that grew in between the two houses. So, you know, that's reasonable doubt. Right. And then he had plenty of people who were upset with him about business deals that would hire a longshoreman or somebody who could just go in there, you know.
And handle business.
Dip out, you know, and in a matter of a second. Because back then, people didn't lock their houses. You know, they didn't have...
We didn't lock our houses up until like the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, or even the 90s.
Right. And the all had skeleton keys anyway, so even if it was locked, you could just, you know, jimmy it.
Oh, yeah.
Super, super easy.
Like picking a lock back then was literally just finding the right key that could twist.
Right.
So you could honestly take like an L-shaped hook,
any kind of L-shaped
and
piece
just
of
get
metal
it in there and then just twist it, and it would unlock the door. So You know, the locks were to keep the honest person honest, and that's all they really were.
Right, right.
Like, you know, they want to open a door and go, ooh, what do we have in here? You know what I mean?
Right.
They just kept the honest guy honest. So
the dad had come home. The stepmother was upstairs changing the bed linens in the guest room, and the father had just came home from work. He would come home every day at 11 o'clock and take a nap. That was his ritual. And that's what he did. He was reading the paper, he laid down on the couch to take a nap, and then that's when they got him.
So it makes me wonder how the wife did not hear. Do you think he went in and gave him a whack and knocked him out? Or killed him immediately and then went upstairs and took her out and then whacked her up and then came back down and whacked him up?
I think the guy was hiding in the house. When Bridget came to start her errands in the morning, the maid, I think that she opened up the back door to go do the laundry, and then that guy snuck in, and he was hiding in there, right? So then
maybe he was snooping in there,
right? Or yeah, he was looking to steal stuff, because there was stuff missing, even though they don't ever tell you that. There was jewelry missing from the house. And money and cash and jewelry were missing from the house.
Even could have been a person after the fact that was in the house.
Of course.
You know, it could have been anyone.
Right.
You know, so.
But the stepmother was killed first. And, you know, at least 45 minutes to an hour before the father came home. So he came home, took his nap.
Okay.
Laid down, and then.
He wasn't home when she got handled.
Right.
Gotcha.
So he came home like he usually does, sit down on the couch, read his newspaper, fell asleep, and then he got axed up.
He got hamburgered.
While he was taking a nap. That's why there's no defensive wounds on him, because he was asleep.
He was asleep when the first axe blow hit.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why. And then the stepmother got it in the back of the head. That's why there's no defensive wounds on her.
Right.
And that's the whole argument of all of the people, was that there was no defensive wounds on it because it was Lizzie that killed him.
Right.
They weren't expecting her to do it, but really, they had no idea. You know.
Right.
So the theory, the reasonable doubt that I have as to Lizzie being able to do it was she was wearing a big dress at the time, or they claim that she was naked, but I don't buy that for a second either. But there's no way that you could get around the stepmother and get her from behind, you know what I'm saying? Because Lizzie and the stepmother did not get along.
Right.
So she wouldn't turn her back on Lizzie, you know what I'm saying? Because she didn't like Lizzie. So she knew there was always a conflict between the two of them. So if she was in the room, she would have just stopped and stood there and been like, "Can I help you?
Yeah.
Can you go back to your room now?" You know what I'm saying? She wouldn't have turned her back on her and got her.
Right, and it would have been a different way of things going down than they would be today.
Right.
Like, because back then children were just objects and stuff, and we're talking about a stepchild now, so like she probably would have been like, yeah, like, don't bother me, go away.
Right. Get lost.
Like, yeah, you know.
Right. So if there was somebody hiding in the bedroom, right, they could have opened that door very slowly and then got her.
Well, and then he could have been in the room at the time, heard her coming, like snooping through the room,
right,
heard her coming and hid in the room.
Right.
You know.
And that would have gave him
the
opportunity to get her from behind.
Even behind the door. He could have just slid behind the door.
Yeah.
And as she walked into the room, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it was probably more of the first initial would have probably been more of opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, basically, oh shit, what am I going to do if I get caught?
Right.
You know, so he probably took her out and then.
Oh yeah.
Then was like, okay, now what do I do? Or, you know, if that is the scenario, right? And then came downstairs when, you know, and I bet even in that point, he may have heard, you know, Andrew come in.
Right.
Right? And then thought that he had left because it had gone quiet. Right? So he probably came downstairs, saw him sleeping, and was like, oh man, I got to get rid of this dude too.
Right.
You know,
or because Bridget was in the back, and Lizzie was also in the back part of the house.
Right.
So there's no way he could have went that way out. He had to go out the front door, which is in view of the couch where he was taking the nap. So he probably thought it's easier just to whack him out and then duck out the door than it is to try to duck out the door and then have him come out after you in a street full of people and been like, thief, thief, you know.
But then you're also talking about as many times as they were struck, you know. So now, talking about as many times they were struck, now we're leaning more towards, you know, somebody being paid to do it, or somebody had a pun intended, an axe to grind.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So any one of those points is enough doubt to acquit a person in a murder trial, because all you need is one, you know, doubt.
Yep. So, another wonderful podcast with a few rabbit holes. You know, like you say, we dip our toe in so you guys can go get totally immersed in it. Yeah.
There's so many books and movies and specials and YouTube things about it. You could spend all day just going, you know, through further down the rabbit hole of and there's so outlandish stuff too. I watched a YouTube video about where Lizzie was part of a satanic cult and she sacrificed her parents. Wow. And
alrighty.
It is unbelievable how just extravagant people have gotten with the stuff. And later in life, Lizzie had a actress friend who was kind of a local socialite and druggie, you know, and she really liked this lady, and she was like really probably the only person in town who took her like seriously, you know, as an innocent person. So she kind of lived with Lizzie. You know what I'm saying? And they had like a really good friendship, and they always tried to make it out to be like some kind of like it was her lover or whatever, you know. And you can see from the note and the correspondence and stuff that she had with this lady that it was nothing like that. So
for all of you that saw the lighting change, the monitors went dark because we haven't touched the mouse. Yeah. But we were done with the information on the screens anyway. So
get a jiggler.
That's all right. Yeah, the mouse jiggler. Yeah, that's me. I'm the mouse jiggler. We can reach over and touch it every once in a while. But another wonderful rabbit hole full of
it's an interesting thing. So. I mean, you know, we live in St. Louis, and we traveled all the way out to Boston to go and see, you know, for ourselves.
Right.
That's the kind of people that we are as investigators, you know. Somebody tells you something is one thing, but to actually go there and see it yourself with your own eyes, you know, and feel the vibe of the house, you know, and actually see the layout of the place. It's one thing to have somebody tell you a story, you know, or tell you, you know, their impression of what happened, and it's another thing to actually stand in the room where it happened,
right?
You know, and think like, how many steps would you have to take?
You're there trying to solve the mystery yourself, you know,
just to see it, because
you're trying to walk the footsteps and really see how it went,
right?
You know,
how would you wind up, you know, to get the,
you know what I'm saying? And was it a small axe? Was it a wood axe?
They claim that it was a small axe. So to get that kind of blow that would split somebody's skull open, you would have to come from downtown.
Coming downtown.
Like, I mean, especially if you're a small woman, you know what I mean? You'd have to basically leap into it.
You said come from downtown, and then you did that, and then I went, that's some good eating.
Right.
So go out there, check things out on your own. Definitely dig into this one. It's, as Bob would say, it's good eating.
Yeah.
So
any movie that has Christina Ricci in it is already you're already in the top 80%. You know what I'm saying? As far as I'm concerned, it could be Christina Ricci standing next to a fish tank for an hour and a half. I'm like, I'll give it a thumbs up. You know what I mean? She's such a great actress that anything that she's in, I'm going to watch.
We have to prove that we're real.
Yeah, we're humans.
We're humans. Verification complete. On the live last night, we didn't have to do a verification for like 4 hours.
Wow.
So it's kind of weird. But, so, you have any closing thoughts, Bob?
No.
So if you want to get in contact with Bob, or if you have any questions for Bob, He can be reached on just about everything.
Yeah.
R.S. Curtis.
Yeah.
Or the Real Veritas Project.
The Real Veritas Project at Gmail is the good one if you want to have any suggestions or if you want to ask any questions about stuff that we go over.
And feel free, if you guys watch this on YouTube, throw us comments, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you guys have an idea for a podcast, let us know. We'll take it. We'll run with it.
Oh, yeah.
We've done, somebody recommended one a few months ago, and we turned around and did it the next week for them. So, you know, we'll talk about anything.
Someone suggested Antarctica.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we delved into Antarctica.
Yeah.
So, if you want to get a hold of me, it is investigator.todd.paranormal@gmail. You know, we're out there on everything. Obviously, you're following us on YouTube.
We're all the stuff.
But we're, you know, Facebook, Instagram, all that good, happy stuff. But we do most of our stuff here.
Yeah.
So.
Or even Patreon and Rumble.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Patreon.
Yeah, the Patreon. You can join the Patreon. It's like $1, I think, or $5 for the top tier.
If you do join the Patreon, you will become permanently etched in history, because when you join the Patreon, our whole 2 Patreon followers are currently on a slide that shows at the end of the video on YouTube. So your name will go down in history as a Patreon follower, and we will ask you what you want on the Patreon.
Yeah.
So if you want to put, you know, Super McFly Google Man like as your Patreon, that's fine.
Right.
You can do that. We'll put you in there. So so we'll put you on the Patreon.
What's the thing?
It says thank you. Robin, just go ahead and block that one. So somebody we had a troll in the comments. Troll. So thank you, Robin. So yeah, if you want to, you know, get a hold of us, go see us in that, you know, or whatever, you know, we are out there. Ask away the questions. We love the questions. And remember
to stay curious
and find the truth, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, everybody. Bye, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Yep. See ya.